Lola thought she had won when she finally took Amara's husband, Tundi. She believed that after years of envying her best friend's perfect life, she had succeeded, but Lola didn't realize what she'd truly taken. She thought she had stolen Amara's joy, but in truth, she had only stolen her biggest burden. For years, Lola had watched from the sidelines, thinking that Amara's life was the one she should have had. The perfect home, the perfect husband, 2 beautiful kids, everything she had ever wanted. It wasn't just the physical things that got to Lola, it was the envy of a life that seemed to work without effort. The smiles, the laughter, the social media perfect moments. It looked like a dream come true, but Lola never knew about the secrets lying beneath that surface. It wasn't always like that. 15 years ago, Lola and Amara had been inseparable. They met during their first year of university in a shared dorm room. Both were nervous, eager to start this new chapter in their lives. Lola had arrived early, already unpacking her things when Amara walked in, struggling with 2 heavy bags. "Hi," Amara said, exhausted but polite. "I think this is my room." Lola smiled. "Well, guess we're roommates then." That was how it all started, a friendship that seemed destined to last forever. In the beginning, they shared everything. Meals, homework, dreams. They spent late nights talking about what their future would look like. Lola would tell Amara, "I want a big house with a huge kitchen, big enough to throw dinners and have parties." Amara would laugh, "But you don't even cook." Lola would shrug, "It's not about the cooking, it's about the house." Amara's dreams were simpler. "I want peace, a good job, and a family." She'd often say she wanted a loving husband and kids to build a life together just like she had seen in the movies. One evening, as they lay on their beds, Lola said, "Promise me something. When we get married, we'll still be best friends. Nothing will change." Amara smiled, her eyes warm. "Of course, nothing will change." Little did they know that sometimes the things that tear friendships apart aren't enemies but the seeds of envy planted over time. After graduation, their paths took different directions. Amara found stability quickly. She landed a good job at a growing company, and soon everyone knew her for her reliability and hardworking nature. Her career took off, and within a few years she had the life she had always dreamed of. A steady income, a growing career, and the kind of stability Lola had always envied. On the other hand, Lola's life was a series of false starts. She bounced between jobs in marketing, small businesses, and a host of failed ventures. Nothing stuck. Despite this, their friendship remained strong. They called each other every day, visited on weekends, and shared their triumphs and disappointments. At least, that's what Lola thought. But everything changed when Amara called one night, excitement in her voice. "I met someone," Amara said. "Who is he?" Lola asked, already curious. "His name's Tundi." A few weeks later, Lola met him, and she instantly understood why Amara sounded so thrilled. Tundi was magnetic, tall, confident, and charismatic. He spoke with a calm authority that made people listen. His easy smile was disarming, and his stories made everyone laugh. But what really got to Lola was the way he looked at her, the way he seemed genuinely As the months went by, Tundi quickly became a fixture in Amara's life. Their relationship was easy, comfortable, and from the outside, perfect. The couple tied the knot a year later in a beautiful wedding ceremony. The hall was filled with music, laughter, and dancing, everyone celebrating the love between Amara and Tundi. Lola stood by her side as the chief bridesmaid, adjusting Amara's dress and whispering words of encouragement before the ceremony. "You look amazing," Lola told her, feeling a mix of pride and something else she couldn't quite name. Amara, clearly nervous, asked, "Do you think I'm making the right decision?" Lola, her heart full of genuine affection for her friend, squeezed her hand. "Of course you are." In that moment, Lola truly believed in the fairness of it all. She believed that Amara deserved this beautiful man who was completely smitten with her. But as the night wore on, something small began to stir inside Lola's chest, a feeling she couldn't shake. Everywhere she looked, people kept saying how lucky Amara was, how Tundi was such an amazing catch. The admiration for their relationship seemed endless. And that's when it hit her. Why wasn't it her in Amara's shoes? Why didn't she have everything Amara had? The perfect house, the loving husband, the family that seemed so complete. Lola smiled through it all, clapping along with the others as they celebrated Amara and Tundi's new life. But somewhere deep down, a thought kept nagging at her: why not me? Over the next 5 years, Amara and Tundi built a life that many people envied. They had 2 kids, a son and a daughter, who filled their home with laughter and joy. Every time Lola visited, she couldn't help but notice the ease with which Amara seemed to glide through life. The house was always spotless, the kids well-behaved, and Amara seemed to have it all together. Lola, on the other hand, felt like she was treading water. Her life seemed stagnant compared to Amara's. And as if on cue, Amara would always drop little updates about Tundi's latest surprises, gifts, vacations, fancy dinners, things that made Lola feel even more trapped in her own dissatisfaction. One day, while Lola was over visiting, Amara walked into the living room holding an expensive handbag. "Look at what Tundi bought me yesterday," she said, her eyes sparkling. Lola couldn't hide her surprise. "Your husband spoils you," she said with a smile, though she was secretly trying to hide the jealousy bubbling up inside her. Amara laughed lightly. "He just likes taking care of me." This was something that happened often. Another time, Amara showed off a brand new television. "Tundi surprised me with this last weekend." Every story felt like another nail in the coffin for Lola's self-worth. The more she saw Amara's life, the more she realized how much she envied it. She wanted that life, that feeling of security, that effortless grace. But despite the envy building inside her, Lola still found herself supporting her friend. Until one evening, something happened that would change everything. Amara sat across from Lola, her face clouded with something Lola had never seen before. It wasn't the usual carefree smile, it wasn't the laughter they'd shared in the past. Instead, it was a subtle shift, a quiet sadness that weighed heavy on Amara's face. "What's wrong?" Lola asked, her voice full of concern. Amara hesitated, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's Tundi again." Lola's heart stopped for a second. "What happened?" Amara sighed, her shoulders heavy. "He cheated." Lola's anger surged like wildfire. "What, Amara? This man keeps disrespecting you, he keeps doing this to you, and you just keep accepting it." Amara's eyes darted down, embarrassment creeping up on her. "It's complicated." "No, it's not," Lola shot back, her tone firm. "If a man cheats on you, you leave him, period." Amara shook her head slowly. "He's still my husband." Lola could feel her frustration building, but she held her tongue, though she didn't understand. How could Amara stay with someone who treated her this way? A man who could be so charming to everyone else but cruel to the woman he vowed to love forever. As time went on, Lola began to notice more things. Tundi, who had once seemed like the perfect man, had started showing a different side when Amara wasn't around. He was always confident, always charming, always in control until he wasn't. Slowly, Lola began to see cracks in the facade, and what had once. The days after Amara's confession about Tundi's infidelity were filled with a strange mix of confusion and tension. Lola could feel something shifting deep inside her. As much as she hated seeing her friend hurt, part of her felt an unexpected surge of satisfaction. This was the man she had always secretly wanted. And now, with his flaws laid bare, the barrier between Amara's perfect life and Lola's desires had been shattered. But there was more to it than just betrayal. There was something beneath the surface, something Lola wasn't yet ready to confront. Weeks passed, and Amara continued to stay in her marriage despite the cheating. She would call Lola, venting about Tundi's latest failures or disappointments. Each time, Lola would feel the anger boil inside her, but it wasn't directed at Tundi. No, the anger was growing toward Amara. How could Amara, with everything she had, stay with someone who clearly didn't deserve her? Didn't she realize she could do so much better? One evening, as Lola walked into Amara and Tundi's home to drop off a few things, she saw him again. Tundi, the man who had once been nothing more than a distant dream. Now he was right there in front of her, standing in the kitchen, laughing at something trivial. But it wasn't just his charm or his smile that made her feel weak in the knees. It was the way he looked at her, his eyes lingering just a little longer than necessary, his gaze a little too intense. Hey Lola, he said casually, leaning against the counter. His voice was smooth like molasses. Lola froze for a second, the air between them shifted. This was different from the playful conversations they'd shared in the past. There was an unspoken tension in the room, a magnetic pull that Lola couldn't quite shake. How's it going? She asked, trying to act casual though her pulse raced. Tundi gave her a slow smile, the kind that made Lola's heart skip. Good, just tired, everything's a bit much these days. Lola nodded, suddenly feeling uncomfortable. She wasn't sure if it was the way his body was so relaxed or if it was just the intimacy of the space they were sharing, but something about the conversation felt different. As Amara went upstairs to grab something, Lola and Tundi found themselves alone. The silence between them grew thicker, like a storm cloud waiting to burst. Then Tundi took a step toward her. Lola, he said softly, his voice lowering, sometimes I think we'd get along better if things were different. Lola's breath caught in her throat. What was he saying? Her mind screamed for her to stop, to walk away, but her heart was betraying her. What do you mean? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He took another step forward, closing the distance between them. I just mean, I think we understand each other in a way that others don't. Lola could feel the heat in his gaze, the way he was studying her, almost as if he were sizing her up, seeing her in a new light. And for the first time, Lola felt an intoxicating mix of fear and excitement. It was like standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down into the unknown. She didn't know if she wanted to jump or run away. Before she could say anything, Amara called down from the stairs, breaking the spell. Lola quickly took a step back, heart racing in her chest. Lola, you okay? Amara's voice was sweet, but there was an edge to it that made Lola freeze. Yeah, just fine, she stammered, trying to pull herself together. Amara didn't seem to notice the awkwardness in the room. She came down the stairs, a smile on her face, and quickly pulled Lola into a hug. Thanks again for helping out, girl, she said, oblivious to the tension in the air. Lola forced a smile, trying to ignore the whirlwind of emotions that were raging inside her. She wasn't sure if it was guilt, desire, or something else entirely, but something about the way Tundi had looked at her, something about the way he made her feel, was unsettling. She knew that it was wrong, that she shouldn't be feeling this way, but she couldn't shake it. As the evening wore on, the conversation between the three of them went on as usual, but Lola couldn't stop thinking about that moment. The way Tundi had looked at her, the way his words had hung in the air. It was like a door had been opened, and she wasn't sure if she wanted to walk through it or shut it tight and lock it forever. But Lola didn't know that this was only the beginning of a much deeper and darker journey. What had started as an innocent moment of jealousy and envy was about to lead her down a path she couldn't easily escape from. When she left that night, she felt like something had changed. She wasn't sure what, but she knew one thing for certain. The days following that evening with Tundi felt like they were stretching into an endless fog. Lola couldn't shake the memory of his words, of the way he had looked at her. It was as if a switch had been flipped inside her. One part of her screamed that it was wrong, that she needed to pull back before things went too far. But another part of her, the part that had always envied Amara's life, the part that had secretly desired what she could never have, felt an irresistible pull toward Tundi. She tried to keep her distance, to focus on her own life and ignore the temptation. But the more she saw Tundi, the more she couldn't deny the growing attraction between them. Every time she went over to Amara's house, there he was, charming, confident, yet somehow distant. And every time he looked at her, that same intensity returned. It was like they shared a secret, an unspoken understanding that no one else could see. Lola tried to distract herself. She focused on work, on the small projects she had going, but the more she pushed Tundi out of her thoughts, the more he seemed to invade her mind. Every text from Amara seemed to be a reminder of the life she didn't have. Every photo she saw of Amara and Tundi together made her feel that familiar ache deep in her chest. Then came the night that would change everything. Amara had to leave for a weekend conference, and Lola had agreed to look after the kids. It was supposed to be a casual visit, nothing more, but as she entered the house that evening, she could feel the tension in the air. The house was quiet, too quiet. The children were already asleep, and the only sound was the hum of the refrigerator and the soft ticking of the clock in the living room. Tundi was sitting on the couch looking unusually tense. He glanced up as Lola entered, and for a brief second there was something in his eyes that made her heart skip. "Hey," he said, his voice rougher than usual. "Thanks for coming over." Lola gave him a small smile, trying to act like nothing was different. "Of course, Amara asked me to." He motioned for her to sit beside him. "I don't mind, it's nice to have company." Lola hesitated but then took a seat. They talked for a while about random things, work, the kids, how things were going with Amara. But with every passing minute, the conversation seemed to shift. Tundi wasn't talking the same way he usually did. He was quieter, more reflective, like something was weighing on his mind. "Lola," he said after a long silence, his voice low, "you ever feel like everything's not what it seems?" Lola's breath caught in her throat. Was this the moment? Was he about to tell her something she wasn't ready to hear? "What do you mean?" she asked, trying to sound casual though her pulse was racing. He shifted in his seat, looking more serious than she had ever seen him. "Like you have everything you thought you wanted, but then you realize it's not enough. That no matter how much you have, there's still something missing." Lola nodded slowly, trying to follow his train of thought. But inside, a storm was brewing. This felt like a moment of vulnerability, a crack in the mask he wore so perfectly. She couldn't help but feel drawn to it. The man who seemed so perfect was now showing a side of himself that was broken, unsure, and raw. "Yeah, I get that," she said softly, locking eyes with him. Tundi leaned back, his eyes searching hers. "I'm just tired, Lola, tired of pretending everything's fine. You ever feel like you're stuck in something you can't get out of?" Lola's heart was pounding now. She had crossed a line without even realizing it. This wasn't just a conversation anymore, it felt like an invitation. The air between them was thick with unspoken tension. She wanted to pull away, to leave before it was too late, but she couldn't move. She couldn't tear herself away from him. Tundi let out a deep sigh, his shoulders sagging. "I don't know if I'm cut out for all of this anymore. I'm not the man I used to be." Lola felt a flicker of sympathy for him, but it was quickly replaced by something else, something dangerous. The part of her that had always longed for the life Amara had, the life she thought she could never have, was now standing at the edge of something she wasn't sure she could control. "I think you're more than you realize," Lola said, her voice soft. The words left her mouth before she could stop them. Tundi turned his head toward her, his eyes searching hers like he was trying to read something deeper. "You think so?" Lola didn't answer right away. She didn't know how to. She didn't know what this was, but she felt like she was losing herself in it. She could feel the pull, the desire to be closer to him, to cross the line and step into a world that was not hers to take. Before she could stop herself, she found herself moving closer to him. And in that moment, all the reasons to pull away, all the guilt and fear, seemed to vanish. Tundi leaned in, just inches from her face, and for a heartbeat, Lola thought he might kiss her. Everything in her screamed for her to stop, to walk away, but the pull was too strong. This was the life she had always wanted. But just as quickly, something inside her snapped back to reality. Amara, her best friend, what was she doing? Lola pulled away, her chest tight with guilt and confusion. I can't do this." Tundi didn't argue, he simply nodded, his face hard to read. "I get it." Lola stood up quickly, her hands trembling. "I have to go," she said, her voice shaky. Without another word, she left the house, her mind spinning, her heart in turmoil. As she drove home, Lola realized just how far she had fallen. She had crossed a line that she couldn't uncross. And now she was stuck in a web of her own making. The days that followed Lola's close call with Tundi were a blur. She tried to convince herself that she had made the right choice by leaving, but deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that something inside her had shifted, something that couldn't be undone. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Tundi's face, felt the pull of his gaze, and heard his voice, that low, dangerous tone that seemed to draw her in like a moth to a flame. It was like her body and mind were at war. Part of her knew she should walk away, that what she had been feeling was wrong, selfish, and destructive. But another part, a deeper, more primal part, wanted to feel that heat, that thrill again. It was tempting, so tempting, and Lola was beginning to realize that she couldn't keep fighting it forever. But the guilt weighed heavily on her. Every time she saw Amara, it felt like she was suffocating under the weight of the lie she was living. The conversations with her friend had grown quieter, more strained. Amara was blissfully unaware of the emotional turmoil Lola was experiencing, but Lola could see the cracks in her own behavior, the hesitation in her smile, the way she shifted uncomfortably when Amara casually mentioned Tundi. On the outside, Lola kept up the act. She laughed at Amara's stories about Tundi's generosity, about the vacations, the gifts. She nodded when Amara talked about how lucky she was to have such a loving husband. But inside, Lola felt something dark growing. She wasn't just jealous anymore, she was consumed by the lie she had started to tell herself that she had earned the right to Tundi's attention, to his love. But deep down, she knew the truth. She wasn't just stealing her friend's man, she was stealing her life, the life that Lola had always envied from the outside but never understood until now. One afternoon, a text from Amara came through. It was a simple message, just asking if Lola could come over to help with some things while she was out of town for work. Lola stared at the message for a long time, her mind torn between doing the right thing and giving in to the temptation that had been gnawing at her. For a brief moment, she thought about not going, about staying home and ignoring everything. But the desire to see Tundi again, to feel that rush, overwhelmed her. She couldn't resist it, not yet. She needed to know if what she had felt before was real or if it had just been a fleeting moment of weakness. When Lola arrived at Amara's house that evening, she immediately noticed the change in the atmosphere. The air felt heavier, like something unspoken was hanging between them. She had expected to see the usual warmth in Tundi's smile when he greeted her at the door, but instead his expression was distant. His usual charm was nowhere to be found. "Hey," he said, his voice flat. "Thanks for coming over." Lola forced a smile, trying to play it cool. "No problem. Amara asked me to help out with a few things while she's away." Tundi didn't say much after that. Instead, they both fell into an awkward silence, neither knowing what to say. It wasn't the easy camaraderie they had shared before. This was different. The tension was palpable, and Lola could feel it deep in her gut. She walked into the living room, putting her purse down on the couch, but before she could say anything, Tundi spoke again, his voice low and measured. "You should probably know something," he began, staring out the window as though the words were hard to say. "Amara, she's been going through a lot lately. She's not as happy as she seems." Lola's heart skipped a beat. What was he trying to tell her? "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Tundi finally turned to face her, his eyes dark and unreadable. "She's been carrying everything, the kids, the house, the bills. I haven't been able to keep up with anything. I haven't been the man she needs." Lola's stomach churned. Was he confessing? Was he telling her that Amara was falling apart, that he wasn't the man she thought he was? A part of Lola felt sympathy for him, but it was quickly overshadowed by the creeping feeling that something else was going on. He was letting her see this vulnerable side, this broken part of himself, and Lola wasn't sure if he was looking for someone to blame or someone to save him. "I don't know what to do anymore," Tundi admitted, his voice thick with frustration. "I've been trying to keep it together, but it's just falling apart." Lola could see the cracks in his facade now. He was unraveling in front of her, showing her a side of himself that no one else had seen. And if she was being honest, it made her feel more powerful, more in control. She hadn't expected to feel sympathy for him, but now she did. Was it real sympathy, though, or just a twisted desire to get closer to him? "I can't fix it for you," Lola said, her voice steady but her heart racing. "I'm not the one who can help you." Tundi's gaze lingered on her for a moment, and in that split second, Lola knew exactly what he was thinking. He didn't want her sympathy, he wanted her. He had been trying to tell her all along that he was dissatisfied, that he needed something more than what Amara could give him. And Lola, despite everything, could feel herself slipping. The silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. Lola opened her mouth to say something, anything, but before she could, Tundi moved toward her, closing the space between them with a step that seemed to shake the world around her. For a split second, time stood still. Lola could feel her heart pounding in her chest, her breath shallow, her body betraying her. Then, before she could stop herself, she heard her own voice, soft and uncertain, saying, "I can't do this." Tundi stopped, his eyes searching hers. "Why not?" "Because this isn't me," Lola said quickly, her voice trembling with a mix of guilt and shame. "I'm not that person." But deep down, she knew she was lying. She wasn't sure who she was anymore. The lines between what was right and what was wrong had blurred beyond recognition. As she left that night, her head was spinning. She had crossed a line she couldn't uncross, and she knew there would be consequences. What started as a simple moment of envy had turned into something far more dangerous, and now she was in too deep to back out. Lola didn't know what she had expected when she left Tundi's house that night. A sense of relief, perhaps, or maybe even the conviction that she had done the right thing. But the closer she got to her car, the heavier the weight on her chest became. It felt like she had stepped into a storm that was only just beginning to build, a storm of her own making. She had crossed a line, one that no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't take back. The drive home was a blur. The night air felt colder than usual, and as Lola sat in her car, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly, she realized that she couldn't escape what had happened. She couldn't deny it anymore. She was in deeper than she had ever imagined. The guilt, the temptation, the desire, it was all tangled together, and there was no untangling it. By the time she got home, it was well past midnight. She hadn't even noticed how quickly the hours had slipped away. Lola sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her phone, contemplating whether to reach out to Amara or if she should just pretend everything was normal. What could she say? How could she tell her best friend that she had been standing on the edge of something unforgivable? The next morning, Lola couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. It wasn't just the guilt, though that was present, thick like a fog in her mind. It was something deeper, a fear that she had no control over what was happening anymore. She had started out just wanting a piece of Amara's perfect life, but now it was as if she had stolen more than that. She had stolen Amara's peace, her sense of security, her sense of self. Lola spent the day at home trying to distract herself from the reality she was avoiding. She worked through emails, made phone calls, but all she could think about was the conversation with Tundi. Every word, every glance, every touch, it was all replaying in her mind like a loop that wouldn't stop. She tried to push it out of her head, but it clung to her like a shadow. By evening, Lola received a text from Amara. It was short, simple, and to the point. "Can we talk?" Lola froze. Her thumb hovered over the phone screen, unsure of what to do. This was it. This was the moment when everything she had been avoiding would come to light. She knew she couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine, so with a deep breath she typed back, "Of course, when do you want to meet?" Amara responded quickly, "How about now? I'm home." Lola's heart raced. She could feel the panic rising in her chest as she gathered herself to leave the house. Was Amara already suspicious? Did she know something Lola didn't, or was this just a routine conversation? When Lola arrived at Amara's house, she was greeted with the usual warmth, but something felt off. Amara's smile was too wide, almost forced, as if she were trying to hide something. Her eyes, though, told a different story. They were tired, heavy with something Lola couldn't quite place. "Hey, come in," Amara said, stepping aside to let Lola enter. "I've been wanting to talk to you about something." Lola nodded, her heart thudding in her chest. This was it. The moment she had been dreading, Amara motioned for Lola to sit on the couch. "I've been thinking about everything, about Tundi, about us." Lola swallowed, trying to maintain control. "What do you mean?" Amara sat down across from her, her expression serious. "I know it's not my place, but I've noticed things lately, things that aren't right. Tundi's been distant, he's been acting differently. And I just can't shake the feeling that something's going on. I don't know what it is, but I'm scared. I think he's hiding something from me." Lola's stomach dropped. She could feel the world closing in around her. This was the moment when everything would fall apart, when her secret would come to light. But instead of feeling exposed, something strange happened. Amara wasn't angry, she wasn't accusing Lola, she was just tired. She was confused, lost, and that was something Lola hadn't expected. "I don't know if it's just me overthinking things," Amara continued, her voice quiet, almost vulnerable, "but I need to know if there's something I'm missing. And I need you to be honest with me, Lola. Have you noticed anything? Is Tundi okay?" Lola's mind was racing. She couldn't say anything, not yet. She couldn't admit to the affair, not after everything they had been through. She couldn't betray her best friend like that. But as she looked at Amara, her heart breaking for her, Lola realized something. She wasn't just lying to Amara, she was lying to herself. She had made this mess, and now she was standing at the edge, too far gone to fix it without hurting everyone she cared about. "I haven't noticed anything," Lola said, her voice thick with guilt. Maybe he's just stressed. "With work with the kids, you know how things can pile up." Amara nodded slowly, though her eyes were still searching, still uncertain. Yeah, maybe, but it's more than that, I can feel it. I just don't know what to do. Lola's chest tightened. She had just told the biggest lie of her life. She wasn't sure what had hurt more, the guilt that crushed her or the fact that she had no idea how to fix this. She could feel the walls closing in, and she knew that sooner or later the truth would come out. She couldn't keep pretending forever. I don't know what to tell you, Lola said softly. But whatever happens, I'm here for you, Amara. I always will be. Amara gave her a small, weary smile. Thanks, Lola, I don't know what I'd do without you. As Lola left the house that night, she felt a new kind of weight on her shoulders. It wasn't just the guilt anymore. It was the knowledge that she couldn't keep running from the truth. She had made a choice, and now she would have to live with it. There was no turning back. Lola spent the next few days in a state of numbness. Each morning felt like she was waking up from a bad dream, only to realize she was still trapped in it. The weight of her lie, no, her betrayal, pressed down on her chest like a stone. Every interaction with Amara felt heavier than the last, each conversation wrapped in an invisible tension that threatened to suffocate her. Amara had been quiet, but Lola could sense that something was brewing beneath the surface. She had tried to reassure herself that she could keep up the act, that somehow this storm would pass without anyone finding out. But deep down, Lola knew the truth: this was unsustainable. The more she tried to lie to herself, the more cracks began to show. On Friday afternoon, Lola's phone buzzed with a message from Tundi. She froze when she saw his name flash across the screen. Her heart raced as she read his text. I need to talk. Can we meet tonight? Lola stared at the words for a long time, feeling her pulse quicken. What could he possibly want to talk about? The last time they had spoken, things were already tense between them. But something in his message made her feel a sense of dread that she couldn't shake. She hesitated for a moment, debating whether or not to respond. But before she could think it through, she typed back, her fingers trembling. Sure. Where and when? He responded almost immediately. 8 p.m., same place as before. Lola's stomach dropped. The weight of what was about to happen was pressing down on her more heavily than ever. She was going to meet Tundi again, knowing full well that things were spiraling beyond her control. Part of her wanted to run, to stay far away from him and the mess they had created. But another part, the part that had always craved the life she thought she could have, knew that she would go. When she arrived at the house that evening, the atmosphere felt different. Tundi wasn't just distant this time, he was cold, detached. He was sitting in the same spot as before, his back straight, his eyes hard. When he looked up, there was something in his gaze that unsettled Lola. It was as if he had already made up his mind about something, and Lola was about to be caught in the fallout. Sit down, Tundi said, his voice flat. Lola sat across from him, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, trying to steady her breathing. The silence between them felt suffocating, each second stretching out longer than the last. She could feel the weight of the lie that hung between them, the lies she had told Amara and the lies she had told herself. Finally, Tundi broke the silence. I know what's been going on, he said, his voice low. Lola's heart skipped a beat. What are you talking about? Tundi's gaze never wavered. I know about you and me, I know about us. Lola's blood ran cold. For a moment she couldn't breathe. How did he know? Had Amara somehow found out? Was this the moment everything would come crashing down? Tundi, I don't, she stammered, but he cut her off. I know you've been lying to her. I know what you've been doing, he said, his words sharp, accusatory. And I can't keep pretending like it doesn't matter. Lola's mind raced, trying to piece together how Tundi had figured it out, how he had come to this conclusion. But the reality was that it didn't matter. It was already out in the open, and nothing she could say would change it. She started, but her words faltered as Tundi stood up, pacing the room, his hands running through his hair. You think this is all some kind of game, he snapped. You think you can just come in and take what's mine and it won't have consequences? Lola's chest tightened. Tundi, I never meant for this to happen. I never meant to hurt anyone. Tundi laughed bitterly, his eyes wild with anger. It's too late for apologies, Lola. You think you've been getting away with it, but the truth always comes out. You and we were never supposed to happen. But now I'm done with this. I'm done pretending with you, with Amara, with all of it. Lola's heart raced in her chest, the reality of the situation hitting her like a ton of bricks. She had lost control, and now there was no going back. The consequences of her actions were crashing down on her, and there was no escape. I don't know what you want me to say, Lola whispered, her voice barely audible. I don't know what I've become. Tundi's face hardened. What you've become is the person who destroyed everything. The words hit her like a slap in the face. Lola's chest ached as she sat there, paralyzed by the truth of it. She had thought she was stealing happiness, but what she had really stolen was everything: her best friend's trust, her own peace of mind, and the person she used to be. Tundi's next words sent a chill down her spine. I'm telling Amara everything. Whatever this was between us, it ends now. I'm done. Lola felt her stomach drop. No, please don't, she pleaded, panic rising in her chest. You can't do that. It'll destroy her. But Tundi didn't flinch. It's already destroyed. As Lola left the house that night, her mind was in turmoil. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think straight. Everything she had feared was happening, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. The lie had taken on a life of its own, and now it was too late to undo the damage. When she arrived home, she sat on the edge of her bed, her hands shaking. The phone buzzed in her pocket, and when she looked at the screen, her heart sank. It was a message from Amara. We need to talk. Lola knew what was coming. The truth was finally about to surface. The nightmare she had created was about to reach its terrifying peak. Lola stared at the message from Amara, her heart hammering in her chest. We need to talk. The words lingered in her mind, each letter punctuating the weight of the guilt that had been eating away at her from the inside out. She had known this day would come, but knowing it didn't make it any easier. In fact, it made everything worse. She sat in the silence of her apartment, the weight of the world pressing down on her shoulders. The room felt too small, the air too thick, as if it were closing in around her. She had been trying to outrun this moment for weeks, but now it had found her and there was nowhere left to hide. Amara had been her best friend for years, and now Lola was on the brink of losing everything. The lies, the betrayal, the jealousy that had consumed her for so long, everything was about to be exposed, and there was no way to undo what she had done. Lola quickly typed back to Amara, I'm sorry, can we talk tomorrow? She stared at the screen for a long time before sending the message, her fingers trembling as she hit send. She didn't know if Amara would accept her apology or if she'd even be able to look at her again, but she had to try. Minutes felt like hours as she waited for Amara's reply. Her phone buzzed again, and this time Amara's response came quickly. I'll be at your place at 11 a.m. The words hit Lola like a punch to the gut. 11 a.m., just a few hours away. She had no idea how she was going to face Amara, how she could possibly explain the mess she had made, or if there was even a chance for forgiveness. But one thing was clear: it was time to confront the consequences of her actions. Lola didn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Amara's face, the way she had smiled at her, the way she had trusted her. And Lola had shattered that trust in the worst possible way. The guilt gnawed at her, and she couldn't escape the sinking feeling that she was about to lose her best friend forever. The morning came too soon. Lola forced herself to get out of bed, to pull herself together for what was sure to be the hardest conversation of her life. She tried to think of what she would say to Amara, but the words wouldn't come. How could she explain what she had done? How could she make it right when the damage was already done? When the clock struck 11, Lola heard the soft knock on her door. Her heart skipped a beat and she stood frozen for a moment, trying to gather the strength to face the inevitable. With a deep breath, she opened the door. Amara stood there, her face calm but unreadable. She looked tired in a way that Lola hadn't seen before. Her eyes were heavy, not just with the weight of the situation, but with the exhaustion of holding everything together for so long. Hey, Amara said quietly, her voice soft but firm. She didn't wait for Lola to speak before stepping inside. Lola closed the door behind her, her throat tight. Amara held up her hand, silencing her before she could say anything more. No, I need you to listen to me first. Amara's gaze was steady as she sat down on the couch, her eyes never leaving Lola's face. Lola nodded, her chest tightening. She was about to hear the truth, Amara's truth, and she wasn't sure if she could handle it. Lola, I've been living a lie, Amara began, her voice calm but laced with sadness. Not just about Tundi, but about everything. You've been my best friend for years, and I trusted you with everything I had. But lately, I've realized that I've been holding onto this perfect image of a life that's been crumbling beneath the surface. Amara's voice cracked just slightly. I thought I was protecting you, protecting myself, but all I've been doing is holding it all in, and now, I don't know where to turn." Lola felt her stomach drop. Was Amara talking about Tundi, about their marriage? Amara continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "Tundi and we've been struggling for a while. I've been pretending everything was okay because I didn't want to face the truth. And then I found out about you and him. About what you did." She paused, her breath shaky. "I don't know when it started, Lola, but I saw the signs. I've known for a while. I just couldn't bring myself to believe it." Lola's heart twisted in her chest. She had never imagined it would come to this. She had never imagined that Amara knew that she had been carrying the weight of the betrayal all along. "Amara, Lola started, but Amara cut her off again, her eyes filled with a mixture of pain and sorrow. "Don't," Amara said softly. "I don't need excuses, I just need to know why. Why would you do this to me? Why would you hurt me like this?" Lola's breath hitched. She couldn't find the words. What could she possibly say to make this right? "I don't have a good reason, Amara. I've been selfish. I've been jealous. I thought that if I took what you had, your life, your happiness, it would somehow make mine better. But I was wrong. I was so wrong." Amara's eyes searched her face, and for a moment there was silence between them, thick with the weight of everything that had been left unsaid. Then Amara stood up, her movements slow but deliberate. "You've always wanted what I have, Lola," Amara said quietly, her voice steady now. "But what you didn't see, what I couldn't show you, was how much I've been struggling. How much I've been holding everything together for the sake of everyone else. I wasn't living the perfect life you thought I had, I was just trying to survive." Lola's heart shattered at her words. "I never wanted to hurt you, Amara. I never wanted any of this to happen. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." Amara took a deep breath, her face softening, though there was still a sadness in her eyes. "I know you're sorry. But that doesn't change what's happened." The silence between them stretched again, longer this time, as if both of them were waiting for the other to make the next move. Finally, Amara spoke again, her voice quiet but resolute. "I can't do this anymore, Lola. I can't pretend that everything's okay when it's not. I need space. I need time to figure out what comes next without you in my life." Lola's chest tightened, the pain of Amara's words cutting deeper than anything she had felt before. "Amara, please don't let this tear us apart." Amara's eyes met hers, and for a brief moment Lola saw the woman she had always known, the friend she had betrayed. "I don't know if we can go back from this, Lola. But I need to find out who I am without this betrayal." Lola nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. "I understand, I never meant to destroy everything." Amara gave her a sad smile. "You didn't just destroy my life, Lola, you destroyed your own too." And with that, Amara walked out of the door, leaving Lola standing in the wreckage of her own choices. Lola sat in the silence of her apartment, staring at the door where Amara had just walked out. The room felt colder now, emptier. The weight of the betrayal, the lies, and the choices she had made pressed down on her like an unrelenting storm. She had lost her best friend, she had lost her peace of mind, and now she was left with nothing but the wreckage of her own decisions. The phone buzzed again, but this time Lola didn't check it. She didn't need to, she already knew the truth. Amara wasn't coming back. Not today, not tomorrow, maybe not ever. The trust that had been built over years was gone, shattered by her own hands. And the worst part, Lola couldn't undo it. She couldn't rewind time and make things right. The only thing left was to face the consequences of her actions. The days after that conversation passed in a blur. Lola didn't reach out to Amara. She knew it would only make things worse. She couldn't keep hiding behind apologies that would never be enough. Instead, she focused on herself. For the first time in a long time, she began to take a hard look at her own life. How had she gotten here? What had driven her to betray the one person who had always been there for her? The answers were painful to confront, but they were the only way forward. Lola stopped making excuses. She stopped blaming everyone else for her unhappiness. She realized that for too long she had been looking outward for answers, trying to fill a void with things that would never satisfy her. It wasn't about the life Amara had or the man she had stolen. It was about the emptiness inside her, the jealousy, the insecurity that had pushed her to destroy the one thing that mattered most. For weeks, Lola worked on rebuilding herself. She took a break from everything, even from the life she had created as a link builder. She focused on understanding her emotions, confronting her jealousy, and making amends where she could. It was a slow process, a painful one, but Lola knew it was the only way forward. She started by reaching out to those she had hurt, apologizing for her actions and seeking forgiveness, something she had avoided for far too long. She spent time reflecting on her own mistakes and the reasons behind her choices. There was no easy fix, no quick way to erase the damage she had done. But Lola realized something important. Redemption wasn't about making everything perfect again. It was about accepting responsibility and learning from the past. One evening, after weeks of silence, Lola received a message from Amara. Her heart leapt in her chest as she read the text. "I've been thinking a lot about everything. I still need time, but I want you to know that I'm not angry anymore. I don't know what our future holds, but I hope one day we can rebuild what we had." Lola's hands shook as she read the message, tears streaming down her face. It wasn't the immediate forgiveness she had hoped for, but it was something. It was a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, their friendship could survive even if it took time. Lola didn't respond right away. She knew that there was no rush. What mattered was that she had taken the first step in the long road to redemption, and that was enough for now. As the weeks turned into months, Lola continued her journey of self-discovery. She learned to forgive herself, something she had never been able to do before. She knew that she would never be the person she once was, but maybe, just maybe, she could become someone better, someone who would never make the same mistakes again. Amara's forgiveness was still uncertain, and Lola didn't know if they would ever return to the friendship they once had. But for the first time in her life, Lola understood what it meant to truly change. Redemption wasn't about getting everything back. It was about becoming the person you were meant to be, no matter how long it took. Want more stories of redemption and second chances? Subscribe to our newsletter for updates or share this story with someone who might need to hear it. Everyone deserves a chance at redemption, even when it feels like it's too late. Let's keep the conversation going. Comment below and share your thoughts on Lola's journey.